Hi and welcome back to Theology. This is Fiona, and today what I want to share with you is a few lessons that I learned with respect to my journey. And the bit of my journey that I want to talk about is that change in career part. And rather than just talk about it theoretically, I thought what I'd do is just walk you through a couple of things, not everything that comes to mind when you change in career, because that would take hours. So in a few minutes, I'm just going to pull out a few points that I think are important and show how they relate to the experience that I had and the decision that I had to make. So as some of you will have gathered, if you've read the bio and listened to the previous videos that introduce what this channel is all about, at the moment I'm a PhD student. In the past, I've done various careers, so at various points in my life, I've had to make decisions about what to do next, whether to apply for another job or not, whether to leave a particular place of work to do something completely different. I've had the choices a number of times. Some of you will have had a very clear career path, as in at the age of whatever you decided, I'm going to be a nurse. I'm trained to be a nurse. I've been a nurse all of my life and I've just moved up the ranks. I started as an ordinary registered general nurse, moved up to be a staff nurse, a sister, a matron. You moved up and you've just loved it. That's who you are. That's all you've ever wanted to be. My path hasn't been like that. I started life, my very first job that I did, I actually helped my mum when she was doing a part-time cleaning job. So I can remember going in and helping to clean desks in an office. Later on after that, I spent some time with her on a Saturday. I'd go into a factory where she used to work, because when we were very young, she had a job in a factory where she used to sew. And I can remember working in the holidays, cutting the little bits of thread that were hanging off skirts and what have you. I had the executive position of passer, and it was a sort of quality control position, so I'd cut the threads off garments and pass them to the presser, who would then press them and cover them in plastic, get them ready to be taken off to the shop or wherever they went from the factory. So I've always worked, and I have 3 children, and in between having the children I've continued to work. So I've had a lot of experience of making decisions about what to do next with respect to careers and career change and job change. So that's where I'm coming from today. So there are lots of reasons why you come to a place where you have to make a decision, and I'm going to split them into 2 areas. I'm going to say there are external factors and also internal factors. So on the outside, it may well be that the company that you work for is going through a difficult time. They might be purging staff, they might be expanding, but external factors have caused your company to rearrange, restructure things. So you might have to change job, make a decision about whether you stay with the company because of those factors that are beyond your control. It could be that while those things that are going on that are beyond your control, it creates some positive opportunities for you, and you think, great, I can be promoted. It might become uncomfortable and you think, actually I don't want to work here anymore, and you go and work somewhere else. Those are external factors. So within the economy, there may well be things that happen as well that again change things on the outside for you, so that you think, nah, I don't want to stay here anymore, I need to move on. So all of these external things can come to play that lead us to a place where we have to make a decision about what we're going to do next. Okay. Now, if you think about the internal issues or factors that can go on, so sometimes deep inside you, you get to a point where just not feeling fulfilled here. The job's become boring, it's become mundane. Maybe you're just in a place where you fancy a new challenge. Maybe you realise that actually I can just do more than this, and you want to retrain and academically do something different. Maybe just because of, again, economic reasons, you need to earn more money. And although maybe there are ways that you could rearrange your life to cope with the income that you're on, it may well be that in order to do the extra things that you want to do for your family or for yourself, you have to earn more money and look at moving on to another job. So these are things that are a little more within your control, the reasons why you decide to move on. Now, all of these things can come at you at the same time sometimes, but it doesn't take away from the fact that a decision has to be made. And as I said at the beginning, I am not trying to cover everything that comes to mind that has to be thought about when you're thinking about changing your career. There are lots more. We're just going to focus on a couple here today. So when you've come to that realization that something has to change, I think that is the first step really in the process, a realization that you need to make a decision that something has to change. And in having this realization, which in many respects is your sort of step one, you have to prioritize what it is that you want and why you want it. So in that process, and maybe you need to have a discussion with a friend, somebody who knows you particularly well. And sometimes it's even better, to be honest, to speak to someone who doesn't know you that well, because sometimes someone who doesn't know you can draw out things that you perhaps haven't thought of. So I would say have a conversation, find somebody to speak to that you trust, to help you with that realisation that something's wrong. You think it's time to move on. Think about what you want and why you want it. Try and answer those questions for yourself. And then I think the next step is to do some research. Find out what's out there. That might come from the conversation that you have with your friend, colleague, nearest and dearest. Might throw up some ideas for you, but do some research. Dr. Google, do a search, find out about different options that are open to you. Do your research. Find out what the other things are that you could do. And in doing your research, what you may find is that yes, there is another path, but it's not necessarily for now. Maybe you need to do X, Y, and Z before you can move on to the ABC of changing your career. So do your research and feeding back into these things that you know you want to prioritise. Make the decision then about what you do next. Because while you've done your research, then the next step is to start to plan about what it is that you need to do, when you need to do it, and how that's going to fit into the rest of your life. So all of those things sprinkled around life don't necessarily happen in a perfect order. And so I just want to share with you what happened to me, because I like to plan, I like to arrange things, I like to know what's coming. And in the last time that I changed my career, it absolutely wasn't planned. I'd got my pension profile every year, did my appraisal every year with my boss, had my targets set, was in a school as an assistant head teacher, and I wasn't planning to change my career. I was thinking about when I was going to move up the ladder at some stage in the future. And then on my way home from work, because I was the person who tended to work late, tended to be in early, so it was a long working day for me. And on my way home, I was involved in a road traffic accident. So the impact of the lorry on my car wrote off my car, damaged my car severely. It wasn't quite written off. And I thank God every day for the type of car that I just happened to be driving, which when I think back about the impact on the car and the lorry, a smaller car maybe would have spun. Who knows what would have happened and where I would have been. So all that happened to me was I had neck injury, back pain, whiplash, the common symptoms of those things. So I suffered for a while, had some time off work. When I went back to work, this whole scenario in the workplace had changed. And without going into details, we were all offered voluntary redundancy. And because I'd taken so much time off work, I thought, I don't want to be here for the next phase of what's going on in the workplace. I don't want to reapply for my job because in this restructure, I would have had to reapply for my job. And because I'd been out of work ill for a while, I felt as if, I'm being honest, I kind of felt like I wasn't ready to compete again after having so much time out. And I'm a person who, I actually love interviews. I'm that sad person. All of my life, I enjoy interviews. I've actually had interviews in the past for jobs that I kind of feel as if I shouldn't have got the job, but because I interviewed so well, I got the job. I yeah, I don't know why. I would always do my research and plan and go for it in an interview. And I'm that person who's been in a situation where I've had an interview, known that I might get the job, driven home, rung the panel and said, I've changed my mind about the job. If you were thinking of giving it to me, I'm no longer interested, because as I've driven home, I've thought the interview process is not just about me getting the job, it's about me knowing that it's the right job for me. So yes, I am that person who's rung the panel and said, don't offer me the job. I've changed my mind, I don't want it. So don't waste your time, give it to the next person. That might sound arrogant. I'm not being arrogant, because I have, that's just what happened. And the last time I did that, I think I've done it twice. Oh, they made it quite difficult. We'd like to talk to you about why it is you don't want the job. No, we don't want to just accept that you don't want the job. Could you come in and have a chat with us and tell us why you don't want the job? And it was, you haven't actually offered it to me yet. I'm just on my way home. Please just let it drop. I don't want the job. Anyway, leaving that to one side, hadn't planned to go there. So my situation was, yes, I took voluntary redundancy. And what I thought at the time was, I'll go and do a master's. I'm going to do a master's degree in leadership. I'm a Christian. I was thinking I could go back into education as a deputy head, apply for a job at a faith school, and I kind of had this vision of the future of going back to work in a faith school as a deputy head with my leadership stroke theological qualification. Bob's your uncle. I went and did the MA, planned to do that in a year, and during the time that I was doing my MA, I had a period of illness where my full-time MA then turned into a part-time MA. So it took longer to complete the qualification than I'd planned. Anyway, gradually getting myself back to a place where I could finish. Again, I was embarrassed, to be honest, embarrassed that I was so slow in getting this qualification, because I only planned to take a year. It took me about 18 months to get the qualification. Anyway, I graduated and thought, okay, what can I do now? Was doing a bit of supply teaching to keep the wolf away from the door. But that, can't say I enjoyed that. And although I went through a period of what I would say is mourning the loss of my job, mourning the loss of the status and everything that came with being an assistant head, I eventually came to a place where I thought, do I really want to go back into education? I just want to give myself a bit of time and think about what it is that I really want to do. And so what I did then was spend some time doing some additional modules at the theological college where I did my MA. And somewhere in the mix, I had a conversation with a member of staff. And this is the contrast to, if you've watched my previous video about the story where I had a member of staff who was meant to help me, who didn't help me. In this new context, someone comes along, one of my teachers, one of the lecturers at the theological college, and said, Fiona, Have you considered doing a PhD? No. No, it's not crossed my mind. PhD. Yeah, I've got the MA and I'm really pleased with the MA. And she said, have a think about it. I think it's something that you could do. Have a think about what you'd like to research. Think about it. And I was really stunned. Let me just be honest and say, when somebody believes in you and sees something in you that you don't see in yourself, it had never crossed my mind that I could take that step. And she looked me in the eye and said, think about it. And that's what I did. I thought about it. And thinking about it led me to think, okay, let's give it a go. Let's give it a go. I'm not doing anything. I'll do a proposal. And to cut that bit of the story really short, it took me 2 years to get my proposal accepted, because the first one didn't go very far. The second one, changed my mind about it, submitted it and changed my mind about it. But the third one, I feel as if I got to a stage where when I started to write that proposal, I was actually in touch with what I wanted to do. I'd gotten over, great English, terrible. Anyway, I'd got to the place where I was over the fact that I was no longer a professional in the at school, in the secondary school. I'd got over all of that. I'd got over the fact that I couldn't afford to change my car, that I was no longer wearing a suit to work and high heels and all the trappings of able to stop off at Marks and Spencer's and buy whatever I wanted to buy for dinner, when I didn't want to cook. All of those things, I got to the stage where it just wasn't an issue anymore. And what I did was find what was on my heart that I really wanted to do. So I came up with a proposal. It took me a year to have, not a year, about 8 months, 8, 9, 10 months, almost a year to have it accepted. And the proposal that was accepted, I can honestly say, I feel as if the proposal chose me. I didn't choose the proposal. I feel as if it chose me. And I'm finding out as I'm reflecting on the process that I am now living my dream, if you like. I spend my days, it's a part-time PhD, I spend 2-3 days a week writing, reading, researching. I spend 1 day supporting students, that's my part-time job. I have a day that I call my self-employed day, where I look at preparing for speaking engagements if I'm preaching, or if I'm teaching, doing things for church, or if I have other people who I'm supporting outside of church, doing sort of mentoring, coaching, that kind of thing. So my doctor calls my work life, he calls it flexible and part-time. So I do small bits of work on various days during the week, which is the way that I choose to manage the health issues that I have. So another video sometime I'll talk about the invisible illness. So when you see me on a video, you will see the best part of me, the best that I can make on that particular day, as in the day when I've got the energy to smile at the camera, put a bit of colour on my face to hide the dark circles, and so you'll see the best. On the worst days, those are the days when nobody sees me. Those are the days when I'm on the sofa, and sometimes I think I am not even making sense. So that is another video, that's not for today. But suffice it to say that I am living the dream in many respects, and I feel privileged to be where I am. Even though I didn't plan to change my career, I believe that this was always part of where God wanted me to be. So for those of you that believe and are like me, you're a person of faith, you're a Christian, you believe that there is an overarching plan for your life, then you'll agree with me that some things happen that you hadn't planned that bring you to a place that you didn't know you were going to be in, but you get there and it just feels right, and you know it's the right thing, you know it's the right place for you to be. So for me personally, that's how I feel. And even if you're not a person of faith, you may well have had those times in your life where you feel as if, oh my goodness, this is just the best thing. So I'm not saying you have to be a Christian to get to a place of this is the best thing, but this is my story, this is my life, this is the way that I communicate where I am. So if you, like me, have hit that place in your life where you've wondered, how did I get here? What am I doing here? What do I do next? Just think about the steps that I threw in at the beginning when I started to share with you. You need to recognize that place of realization where something is calling to you to do something different. So if you hit that place of realization, go with it. Do the research, find out what's out there, and maybe it's not time for you to move now. It's something that you do later. Maybe it's about speaking to your employer about things that you can do in the job that you're in right now that can extend you and help you to feel more fulfilled. Maybe you're at a stage in your life where you need to earn more money, and maybe that's about a side hustle. I love that phrase. The side hustle phrase makes me laugh because I grew up in a house where my mother would sometimes work 2, 3, sometimes 4 jobs, little part-time jobs. And side hustle to me always sounds like a sort of a middle class, I've got a side hustle, which is my hobby where I earn some money. But I grew up in a house where if my mum didn't do those 2 or 3 part-time jobs, then financially our family would have suffered because she had to do those jobs to keep the money coming in to help my dad with his income. He worked full time. I'm one of 5 children. My parents always worked, but my mum would have additional jobs doing little things, and now I recognise that she was self-employed doing all of these little jobs so that she could earn this extra money. So the side hustle sounds a bit glamorous, but whatever your situation is, whether it's your hobby that you can earn some extra money from that you can use to go on holiday, or whether it's necessary income to put food on the table, maybe it's a side hustle that you need to contemplate. There are so many different avenues available to us as people here in the West where we can go to education, higher education, further education, do education online. Most of the teaching that I'm doing at the moment for adults, mature students, is online. So whatever the reason is, whether it's something going on the inside that makes you want to do something different, whether it's an external factor, do your research. And when you've done your research, start to plan how it is that you're going to execute that thing that you'd like to do. And in all of that, I think, somewhere find peace within yourself that it's just part of the journey. It's part of the journey. Fine, if you're one track, you wanted to be an accountant, you're an accountant and you'll be an accountant until you retire. I haven't given you all of the jobs that I've done. I've had 4 or 5, maybe, different careers, different jobs over my working life. And I fully, expect to go back into the workplace to do maybe an extra day or 2 a week, and maybe do some consultancy work, more consultancy work. I have no intention of not working in greater capacity in an employed basis than I am doing at the moment. I think that makes sense. I just know that this wasn't my plan. I knew I was going to retire at the age of 67, I think. And I was fully expecting to work until that age. I enjoyed my job. I enjoyed my job and I was not intending to leave. But this is what happened to me. And I wanted to do this video and smile, knowing that I'm happy doing what I'm doing, but also acknowledging that because my husband is self-employed and my children are grown up, I have a lot of things available to me in terms of resource that would be difficult for other people. So I think it's important just to lay that out there. Making the decision that I made meant a large loss of income. Making the decision that I made has meant, I don't even have a car anymore. Used to have a car, don't have a car. That's a bit weird. So I've had to make some adjustments to my life, and it is what it is. It is what it is. But my position is not a desperate one. I didn't lose my house. I've managed to keep food on the table, and between my husband and I, we still pay the bills. And I understand that's not the case for everyone who goes through what I went through. So I just wanted to, I suppose, just end what I'm saying today with, I hope there was something in these minutes that I've shared with you that is helpful if you are in that do I change my career, do I change my job situation, scenario. And I've left my contact details in the notes if you want to make an appointment to speak to me, because as I said, I do a bit of coaching and mentoring. So if you think, I could have a conversation with Fiona about that, I'm available to take that on with you. And if you think of someone who would benefit from listening to my story, you can share the story with someone else. If you have a comment to make about what I've said, maybe you disagree. Maybe you just, whatever. I'm not telling you what to say or not to say. If you have a comment to make, let's try and keep it positive. So if you have a comment to make, because I've already said, I've not put everything in there, but any comment that might help someone else. And I know there are lots of other things to consider when you're thinking about changing your career. So if you'd like to add to what I've already said, please put the comments below. And if, like me, you're happy with what you're doing now and glad you took the plunge, add those comments as well. If you're feeling stuck and you'd like help getting unstuck, as I said, comment below, contact me, and we'll see where we can go with that one. So I need to call it quits now. My name is Fiona. The channel is called Theology, and I'm aiming to bring you stories that inspire you, that motivate you. And as today we've talked about changing career, I've got some ideas about other things I'd like to do. I'd like to talk about finances because, everything changes when the income that was X amount becomes zero. So I'd like to talk about finance. I'd like to talk about how to manage things at home. There are various things that come into my day-to-day life as a mature student that may well be of interest to you. So how I organise things, how I research, how I study, how I do life. Stick with me and see where we go with the channel. So I'm saying goodbye now. I'm definitely saying goodbye now. My name's Fiona and this is Theology, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care now. Bye bye.